Alright. Hello. Hello. Hi. Welcome to the 7th chapter of the Amazing Maurice. A reading series which I have not done anything with for many, many months. Good on me. I've been a lazy piece of shit. And I haven't really. I've been doing other stuff, so I haven't been doing this. But now I'm doing this again. But it is many months later, and so I am horrendously out of practice. It's something that I was already shit at. So this should be fun. This should be loads of fun. This is chapter 7. Chapter 7 of The Amazing Maurice and His Educated Rodents. And because of Ollie the Snake's trick with the road sign, Mr. Bunsey did not know that he had lost his way. He wasn't going to Howard the Stoat's tea party. He was headed into the dark wood. Our kids are now headed also into the dark wood, or rather, the dark cellar, where it is dark. Melissa looked at the open trapdoor, as if giving it marks out of 10. Quite well hidden, she said. No wonder we didn't see it. I'm not hurt much, Keith called up from the darkness. Good. How far down are you? It's some sort of cellar. I'm okay because I landed on some sacks. Alright, no need to go on about it. It wouldn't be an adventure if there weren't some minor hazards. Here's the top of the ladder. Why didn't you use it? I was unable to on account of falling past. Shall I carry you down? Melissa said to Maurice. Shall I scratch your eyes out? He responded. Melissa's brow wrinkled. She always looked annoyed when she didn't understand something. Was that sarcasm? She said. That was a suggestion. I don't do picking up by strangers. You go down. I'll follow. Melissa descended into the dark. There was a metallic noise and then the flare of a match. It's full of sacks, she said. I know. I landed on them, I did say. The cellar is full of sacks of grain and strings of sausages and bins of vegetables, which sends Melissa into a rant about how it's been the rat catchers stealing food all along and how they've been paid for it out of the taxes and how they'll be rewarded. The kids, not the rat catchers, will be rewarded for catching the rat catchers. Maurice is suspicious. What have they been doing? Pinching the food and then saying it was the rats, honest, and everyone believed them? No. People have found gnawed bones and empty egg baskets and rat droppings all over the place. Maurice concedes that it would be easy for rat catchers to pull off, but remains unconvinced. Yeah, and that's a bit puzzling because we've met your rat catchers and frankly, if it was raining meatballs, they wouldn't be able to find a fork. I've been thinking about something, said Keith. Well, I'm glad someone has, Melissa began. It's about the wire netting. There was wire netting in the shed. Is this important? Why do rat catchers need wire netting? Rolls of it. Cages, maybe? Doesn't matter. Why would rat catchers put rats in cages? Dead rats don't run away. Maurice could see that Melissa was not very happy about that comment. It was an unnecessary complication. It spoiled the story. I may be stupid looking, Keith added, but I'm not stupid. I have time to think about things because I don't keep talking all the time. I look at things, I listen, I try and learn. I don't talk all the time. Maurice lets them argue in favour of stalking around the cellars, which go on a very long way. He sees something streaking across the floor and pounces. All right, speak up or... He's stopped by a big stick bashing into his nose. He's caught a very intensely unimpressed sardines. I've got a cat on. All right? Do you even bother to look? All right, sorry, why are you here? Looking for you and the stupid-looking kid. Ham and Pork sent me. We're in trouble now. You won't believe what we found. He wants me. I thought he didn't like me. Well, he said it's nasty and evil, so you'd know what to do. Sardines inspects his hat and is annoyed at the claw mark through it. Maurice insists, multiple times, that he did ask. He always asks, and Sardines insists that he grab the kids and follow him through the cellar. Boss, he says, this is serious. Peaches and Dangerous Beans waited for the exploration party. They were with Toxie, another young male rat who was good at reading and acted as a kind of assistant. Peaches had brought Mr. Bunsey Has an Adventure. They've been gone a long time, said Toxie. Dark 10 checks every step, said Peaches. Something's wrong, said Dangerous Beans, his nose wrinkled. A rat scurried down the tunnel and pushed frantically past them. Dangerous Beans sniffed the air. Fear, he said. 3 more rats scrambled past, knocking him over. What's happening? Said Peaches, as another rat spun her around in an effort to get past. It squeaked at her and rushed on. That was Finest. Why didn't she say anything? More fear, said Dangerous Beans. They're scared, terrified. More rats run past. None will stop. None will speak to them. Whatever this is, it's worse than the ferrets and dogs that they have faced before. One rat chitters, panicked at them. They've forgotten how to talk, says Dangerous Beans, and Peaches realizes that he is crying. 6 more rats push their way past, screeching. Peaches tried to stop one, but it just squeaked at her and dodged out of the way. That was Feed's 4, she said, turning to Toxie. I was only talking to her about an hour ago. Toxie? Toxie's fur was bristling. His eyes were unfocused. His mouth was open, showing his teeth. He stared at her, or right through her, and then turned and ran. She turned and put her paws around Dangerous Beans as the fear swept over them. There were rats. From wall to wall, floor to ceiling, there were rats. The cages were crammed full of them. They clung to the wire in front and to the ceilings, the netting strained with the weight. Glistening bodies boiled and tumbled, paws and noses thrusting through the holes. The air was solid, with squeaking and rustling and chittering, and it stank. What was left of Ham and Pork's exploration party were clustered in the middle of the room. Most of it had fled by now. If the smells in that room had been sounds, they would have been shouts and screams. Thousands of them. They filled the long room with a strange kind of pressure. Even Maurice could feel it. As soon as Keith broke down the door, it was like a headache outside your head trying to get in. It banged on the ears. Even Ham and Pork was trembling. But he was trembling with rage. Let them out, he shouted at Keith. Let them all out. Let them out now. Another talking rat, said Melissa. Let them out. All these foul cages. I did say about the wire netting, said Keith. Look, you can see where it's been repaired. They gnawed through the wire to escape. I said let them out. Let them out or I will kill you. Evil, evil, evil. But they're just rats, said Melissa. Ham and Pork leapt and landed on the girl's dress. He swarmed up towards her neck and she froze. He hissed. There are rats eating one another in there. I will gnaw you, you evil. Keith's hand grasped him firmly around the waist and pulled him off her neck. Screeching, hair bristling, Ham and Pork sunk his teeth into Keith's finger. Melissa gasped. Even Maurice winced. Ham and Pork drew his head back, blood dripping from his muzzle, and blinked in horror. Tears welled up in Keith's eyes. Very carefully, he put Ham and Pork down on the floor. It's the smell, he said quietly. It upsets them. I thought you said they were tame, said Melissa, able to speak at last. She picked up a lump of wood that was leaning against the cages. Keith knocked it out of her hand. Never, never threaten one of us. He attacked you. Look around. This is not a story. This is real. Do you understand? They are frightened out of their minds. How dare you talk to me like that? I reckon will. One of us, eh? Was that a rat swear word? Do you even swear in rat now, boy? Maurice heard a sound. Someone was coming to the ladder. This was no time to talk to humans. They always said things like, "What?" and "That's not right." "Get out of here right now," he said as he ran past Dr. "Don't get human about it. Just run." That was quite enough heroism. There was a rusted old drain in the wall, and there, yes, was a Maurice-sized hole where a bar had rusted clean away. He darted through the hole just as the rat catchers entered the room of cages, and, safe in the dark, turned to peer out. Dark-Tan was tugging Ham and Pork, who seemed frozen in place. The others scuttled towards a drain in the opposite wall. Dark-Tan gave up and ran for the drain, and Maurice watched the humans solve the human problems. Ratcatcher 1 stared at Melissa and Keith. "What are you doing here, miss?" he asked, his voice reeking with suspicion. "You broke in our shed. That's called breaking in, that is. You've been stealing, yes, stealing food, and blaming it on the rats," snapped Melissa. "And why have you got all these rats up and caged up in here? And what about the aglets, eh? Didn't think anyone would notice, eh?" Ratcatcher 1 span around. "You bloody idiot! I said we had enough real ones. I told you someone would notice. Didn't I tell you someone would notice? So someone has noticed." Melissa's eyes were gleaming. "I know you're only the humorous thugs. One big fat one thin one. It's obvious. So who's the big boss?" Ratcatcher 1's eyes glazed over slightly, and he waved a finger at her, saying her father had gone and paid $300 for a rat piper. "And we only charged $30, Maurice thought. "It's you, isn't it?" said Ratcatcher 1, waving his finger at Keith. "The stupid-looking kid. You turn up, and then suddenly there's all these new rats around, and there's something I don't like about you and your funny-looking cat. If I ever see that cat again, it's going to have mittens." "Said Ratcatcher 2. He'd probably studied to get a laugh like that, thought Maurice. "And we don't have a boss," said Ratcatcher 1. "Yeah, we're our own bosses," said Ratcatcher 2. "And you, miss," said Ratcatcher 1, "too lippy by half." He swung his fist, lifting her off her feet and slamming her against the rat cages. The rats went mad, and the cages boiled with frantic activity as she slumped to the ground. Ratcatcher 1 turned to Teeth. "You going to try anything, kid?" he said. "You going to try anything? She was a girl, so I was nice and kind, but you? I'll put you in one of the cages." "Yeah, and they aren't been fed today," said a delighted Ratcatcher 2. "Go on, kid," Maurice thought. "Do something." But Keith just stood there, staring at the man. Ratcatcher 1 takes Keith's pipe and snaps it in two, throws it into the cages. "You know, they say over in Pork Scratchins the rat piper let all the kids out of the town. Now there was a man with the right idea." Keith looked up, his eyes narrowed. He got to his feet. "Here it comes," thought Maurice. "He's going to leap forward with superhuman strength because he's so angry, and they're going to wish that he'd never been born." Keith leapt forward with ordinary human strength, landed one punch on Ratcatcher 1, and was smacked to the floor again by a big, brutal sledgehammer blow. All right, he got knocked down," thought Maurice as Keith struggled for breath. "But he's going to get up again." There was a shrill scream. But the scream did not come from Keith. A rat launched itself from the top of the cages onto the Ratcatcher's face, teeth first. "Aha!" thought Maurice. "It's Ham and Pork to the rescue." "What? I'm thinking like the girl." Ratcatcher 1 grabbed Ham and Pork off him by the tail and held his bleeding nose. "He's a bit of a fighter," said Ratcatcher 2. "How'd he get out?" "He's not one of ours. He's red." "Red?" "A red rat's a kind of grey rat, as you would very well know if you were an experienced guild member like me. They ain't local." "Your nose is all runny." "Yeah, I know. I've had more rat bites than you've had hot dinners. Don't feel them anymore," said Ratcatcher 1 in a voice that suggested the spinning, screeching Ham and Pork was much more interesting than his colleague. I only have cold sausages for dinner. There you are then. Real devil, aren't you? Plucky as anything. Kind of you to say so. Was talking to the rat, mister. He prodded Keith with his boot. Go tie these two up somewhere, okay? We'll put them in with one of the other cellars for now. One with a proper door and a proper lock, no handy little trapdoors, and you give me the key. She's the mayor's daughter, said Ratcatcher 2. Mayors can get really upset about daughters. Then he'll do what he's told, right? You gonna give that rat a good squeezing? What, a fighter like this one? Are you joking? It's thinking like that'll keep you a Ratcatcher's assistant your whole life. I've got a much better idea. How many's in the special cage? Ratcatcher 2 examined the cage on the far wall. Only 2 rats left. They've eaten the other 4. Ah, so they'll be full of vim and vinegar. Well, we'll see what they do to him, shall we? Ham and Pork was seeing red. It filled his vision. He'd been angry for months, down inside. Angry at humans, angry at the poisons and the traps, angry at the way younger rats weren't showing him respect, angry that the world was changing so fast, angry that he was going old, and now the smells of terror and hunger and violence met the anger coming the other way, and they mingled and flowed through Ham and Pork in a great red river of rage. He was a cornered rat, but he was a cornered rat who could think. He'd always been a vicious fighter, long before there was all this thinking, and he was still very strong. A couple of dumb, swanking young kikis with no tactics and no experience of down and dirty cellar fighting and no fancy footwork and no thoughts was simply not a contest. A tumble and twist and 2 bites were all it took. The caged rats across the room leapt back from the netting. Even they could feel the fury. The rat catchers are pleased. They discussed taking Ham and Pork to the pit. Fancy Arthur put a bet on his dog Jacko to kill 100 rats, and he probably will, unless Ham and Pork is thrown into the mix. I don't like leaving those kids there, though, said Ratcatcher 2. It's them kids, not those kids. Get it right. How many times have I told you? Rule 27 of the guild. Sounds stupid. People get suspicious of a rat catcher that talks too good. Sorry. Talk thick, be clever. That's the way to do it. You tend to get it the other way round. Sorry, them kids. It's cruel, tying people up, and they're only kids after all. So it'd be easier to take him down the tunnel to the river and bop him on the head and throw him in. They'll be miles down the river before anyone notices. I didn't know you were so kind-hearted, Bill. Right, sorry, and I've got an idea about how to get rid of this rat piper too. The next voice came from everywhere. It sounded like the rushing wind, and in the heart of the wind, the groan of something in agony. It filled the air. No, we can use the piper. Nah, we can use the piper, said Ratcatcher 1. That's right, said Ratcatcher 2. I was just thinking the same thing. How can we use the piper? Once again, Maurice heard a sound through his head, like wind blowing through a cave. Isn't it obvious? Isn't it obvious? Said Ratcatcher 1. Yeah, obvious, muttered Ratcatcher 2. Obviously it's obvious. Maurice watches the ratcatchers stuff some rats and Ham and Pork into some sacks and leave. There's a tiny scrap of moonlight coming from a small crack behind him, and he uses this to search the cellars for a Maurice-sized hole. A voice behind him said, "What kind of thing are you?" He spun around. All he could make out were the boxes and sacks. The air still stank of rats, and there was a continuous rustling, and the occasional faint squeak, but the place was a little piece of heaven compared to the hell of the cage room. The voice had come behind him, hadn't it? He must have heard it, mustn't he? Because it seemed to him that he had just had something like the memory of hearing a voice, something that had arrived in his head without bothering to go through his ragged ears. It had been the same with the rat-catchers. They'd talked as if they'd heard a voice and thought it was their own thoughts. The voice hadn't really been there, had it? "I can't see you," said the memory. "I don't know what you are." It was not a good voice for a memory to have. It slipped into the mind like a knife. "Come closer." Maurice's paws twitched before he controlled himself. Someone was hiding amongst the boxes. Come closer. The voice seemed to be pulling at him. He'd have to say something. I'm happy where I am, thank you. Then you will feel our pain. The last word hurt, but it did not. And this was surprising. Hurt a lot. The voice had sounded sharp and loud and dramatic, as if the owner was keen to see Maurice rolling in agony. Instead, it gave him a very brief headache. When the voice arrived again, it sounded very suspicious. What kind of creature are you? Your mind is wrong. I prefer amazing, said Maurice. Anyway, who are you, asking me questions in the dark? All he could smell was rat. He heard the faint sound to his left, and just made out the shape of a very large rat creeping towards him. Another sound made him turn. Another rat was coming from the other direction. He could only just make it out in the gloom. The rustle ahead of him suggested there was another rat right in front, slipping quietly through the dark. Here come my eyes. What cat kill? And that's the end of chapter 7. I'm trying to do voices again. I've decided, fuck it. Voices make everything better. I'm gonna work hard and do voices and try and make them interesting. So this is going to be extremely inconsistent and horrible, but I'm gonna fucking do it. So fuck you all. Especially my one subscriber. No, thank you very much for listening. I'm very chuffed to be back and doing this again. It's hard work, but I like it. And that's why I'm doing this. Of course, I state this like every video that I've ever done. I'm just having fun today. But if you actually like what I'm doing and want to support me, you can stick about, and that'll be cool. And then I'll have 2 subscribers. Yay.